And now we'd like to welcome the Reverend Susyn Reeves.
I am so happy to be here with you. I'm happy for me because this gives speaking here through all these years, each month gives me the opportunity for many months before I speak to focus on the topic and intention. And the words of today's opening song, swing wide the door of our hearts is truly what this is about. And so I just want to show you a card I made recently in a soul collage class with the door swung wide open so I can go both in and out. And so that there's no difference between my heart's desire on the inside and what comes to form, what manifests on the outside. So to make sure that you get the most benefit from the next 15 or so minutes when I'm speaking, I ask that you set an intention for yourself right now, whatever that may be. And I'm going to share what my intention for today is. And it's often my intention. It is to be an instrument. And what that is shorthand for me is that through my presence, through my words, I not only open my heart more fully and deeply and expand and deepen my capacity to be a mighty expression of love in the world, that there's something that in our gathering, in our breathing together here, opens our hearts more fully to our birthright of being, giving, and receiving love. And so yesterday I listened again to Reverend Patrick and Reverend Mavis's messages from this month. And I thought about it, and I have no idea exactly what I wrote in my intention letter that I've sent off to be mailed back to me in the spring that we wrote together at the beginning of this new year. I do have an overarching intention, my purpose, my calling, that I truly believe that each one of us, just as an acorn has the coating to become a mighty oak, each one of us comes into this life with a seed that, with the nurturing, with the love, whether or not we're always awake to the love, but is within us to come to form in our life. And that's the bigger intention. That's the overarching intention. And Patrick made this distinction between resolutions, which are more about the doing. Our intention is our North Star. It's the guiding light that will look many different ways during our life. Sometimes our intention looks like saying no, creating a boundary. And sometimes our intention gets lost for a while as we're going around the spiral of life, and we get to one of those points that is often called a dark night of the soul, where we don't see the light, where we're in the chrysalis and we turn into that soup that's no longer the caterpillar and isn't yet the butterfly. But within that soup, are these imaginal discs that carry the coding, just as the coding is within each one of us to be mighty expressions of love in the world. And Mavis spoke last week. One of the things that I wrote this down because I was taken by it. She said, be receptive of God's guidance. Use your imagination to shape the thought patterns of your intention so that the divine energy will fill these thought patterns and cause the brain to create new neural networks so that your intention for how you choose to live this life, for how you choose to generously share your unique gifts, talents, and skills is the overarching theme, is so clear to you that you have many touchstones that remind you. And then one of the things that Mavis said is in the Bible story that she told about Abraham. She said that God, intuition, loving energy of the universe, whatever word or words capture the essence of the divine, capture that energy of the loving energy of the universe, the loving energy of the universe, the wisdom of Abraham's heart spoke to him and said, you have to step out of your comfort zone. And this is the reason that I titled this talk IN-TENSION. Because when we fully commit to being whatever your words are, for the words that I used for myself, to be a mighty expression of love, whatever your words may be, making a commitment to that is going to surface all of the places where I'm not loving of myself, where I have conditions on who I love, that when I make the commitment to be a mighty expression of love, I'm kinder, I have more compassion. I can see when somebody seems to be attacking me, I can see that they've forgotten at that moment that they're mighty expressions of love in the world and that we are one. And so I was thinking about this and about how did I come to this intention to be a mighty expression of love in the world? And there are some highlights to my story. And I was so inspired, I don't know if it was last month or the month before, by Alexis Mayer's sharing of her story, that I thought, okay, today I'm going to tell some of the highlights of mine. And mine start with, I believe they started before I was born, that seed of love was in me. And I actually believe this seed of love is within everyone. Because as many of you have heard me say before, if you look at the word earth and you take the H at the end and put it at the beginning, what you get is the word heart. And I think this is the planet where we have opportunities to plan it, of how we're going to express our gifts, talents, and skills. So I came in with that seed of love inside of me. And I was a very loved wanted child. Although I think I think one of my sisters was not so happy, as happens with sibling rivalry. And, but then when I was 3 years old, my mom went into the hospital, and in the early 1950s, if you went into the hospital for surgery, you could often be there for a few weeks. And so my family decided that it would be best if I stayed with my grandparents, who adored me. But on the day my mom went into the hospital, my grandfather came to pick us up and drive my mom to the hospital, a huge Manhattan hospital. And as she walks in and my grandfather carries her valise, she bends down to kiss me goodbye, and she's crying. And there are all of these people all around, and this place is really big, and I'm really small. And the next thing I know, my grandfather has me by my hand, and he's taken me to my grandparents, where I've been many times before, but never without my other family members. And that day, I went deep inside. I disappeared. I stopped talking. I stopped eating. No one knew what to do with me. But I was traumatized, not the trauma of horrific abuse. And I was traumatized. And I made a decision, not aware of the words for it or being able to express it, but I made a decision that there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't enough. And I returned home earlier than my mom got back from the hospital. And years later, after many years of therapy and groups and reading, I had conversations with my mom about this. And she said, "We made a mistake. A different child returned home, a sullen, kind of lost in herself child." Not every moment, because from the outside, my life was really quite beautiful. And yet, when I was 14 years old, I wrote in my journal, and where did this come from? It came from that seed within. It came from the bigger universe that we're part of. It came from divine knowing. And the question that came was, what would the world be like if everybody loves themselves? And I'm pretty certain on that day I was not loving myself. Probably some boy I liked didn't pay attention to me. I thought I had the worst mother in the world, because that's my girlfriends and I were either complaining about our mothers, or we were complaining about boys or about our weight. And even though I was quite skinny, I probably thought I was too fat. So that was my misery. And I took on this cloak of I'm not enoughness, constantly comparing myself to others. And either I was better than or I was less than. And there might be some moments when I had that feeling of being whole and felt connected, but they were fleeting moments. And then when it was the year that the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show for the first time. I think it was 1964, is I consciously decided to eliminate the word love from my vocabulary. So that if I ever said, I love this song, or I love this, or I love that, I would consciously say, no, I don't mean I love, I mean I like. So I took that away, this intention, the seeds that I was here to express and share. And in the taking it away over the years, I had to consciously learn what love is. Both that romantic love of, for me, there's a part of it that is just like feeling like a girl and having a boyfriend, that wonderful feeling, and that deep, intimate connection that happens in our close, close heart relationships. And what I call love with a capital L, which is an open-heartedness and a compassion, starting with ourselves, trusting the wisdom of our hearts, and stepping outside of our comfort zones to be forgiving, to be kind, to be loving, to be compassionate, to be creative, to be joyful, and to even say yes when we're feeling angry and lost and isolated. The willingness to acknowledge that, to notice it, to share it, which does not always mean sharing it with our screaming and yelling and temper tantrums and pointing to the other what's wrong with them, because they are mirrors for us. And then in the early 1980s, it was either Esther, it was Landmark, and this came to me to be a mighty expression of love in the world. And when I went off to Esalen for a month in 1986, and I said that aloud, this is how I said it. I looked down and I said, I'm a mighty expression of love in the world. I was embarrassed to say it out loud because I was sure people would know that wasn't true of me. I was frustrated with my family. I was angry with myself a good deal of the time. I made judgments about others, but I said it out loud. And then over time, all of the ways that I'm not a mighty expression of love surfaced in my life. So that question that I asked as a 14-year-old, what would the world be like if everyone loved themselves? I began to discover what it would be like when I love me. And it makes life so much easier. It makes life magical. So I briefly want to use the word intention. I came up, last time I spoke, I talked about a leaf in terms of understanding the process of beliefs. And today I've got to look at what I wrote for this. Intention. I've had some difficulty with that word because it has tension in it. And I didn't like that. I didn't like the idea that what I'm choosing as a way to express my overarching intention, that there would be any intention. There would be any tension with an S, Tension involved in that. But you know what? There is tension involved in that. So I like to think of this process as we start with pretend. And that is when we go to our hearts in the silence and we ask, what is my next step in living more fully into my calling, into my intention? And I listen to that. And then there are times the tension is, we don't always want to hear that. No, it's too hard. What if it doesn't work? What if I can't do it? I'm afraid. And in the power of our overarching intention, we call on our angels, we call on our guides, we see coaches, we call a prayer chaplain. We pray, we write in a journal, we share with others. And we step outside of our comfort zone, yet feeling supported. And then we have to do the intending. We have to tend on the inside to the vision of the expression of our calling, of our overarching intention. And we have to allow that vision, that image to come to life. And I have a quote about images. And the quote is, you must give birth to your images. They are the future waiting to be born. And so we start tending on the inside, and there's also tension because all those opposing thoughts, all those self-sabotaging thoughts begin to surface. And rather than using those self-sabotaging thoughts as evidence that this dream can't come true for me, we call in our guides, we talk with our friends, we talk with the therapist, with a coach, we write in our journal, we talk to a prayer chaplain, we come to a Sunday service. And again, we step farther out of our comfort zone. And then there's a pretending again. That's the pretending that goes on the outside, where sometimes it feels like we're faking it till we make it. We step into it. We take a step back, but we get up on the horse again. And we trust that guidance from within. We ask for support and help. Seek and you shall find. Ask and it shall be answered. New brain pathways are created, and we step more fully in our three-dimensional manifest reality into being the fullness of our intention. So along the path of your intentions, along the path of that calling that calls to you, that's alive in your heart, along that path there will be tension. Remember, the tension is surfacing to the light of your conscious awareness for you to step out of your comfort zone, make new choices. And this week, because I'm not with you in person and don't have a charm to give you, ground your overarching intention in a stone as a reminder. Allow the perfect stone that is on its way to you right now, whatever that may be, to cross your path, and endow this stone with the quality, with the fullness of your personal expression of being a mighty expression of love in the world. Thank you.